Hi, on today's video we're going to be talking all about can you purchase a buy-to-let property without owning a residential property? Hello, welcome back to our channel and podcast. My name's Gemma and here at WS we talk about all things relating to money, mortgages and positive money mindset. So if that interests you then be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the thumbs up. It really helps with our YouTube algorithm and means that you won't miss out on any of our videos. Here at WIS, we are a fee-free broker, which means that we get our fee from the lender, not you. We were originally set up to help support our WS accountancy side, finding mortgages for self-employed and contractors. However, over the last 10 years, we now deal with all different types of mortgages, ranging from first-time buyers to expats to contractors. Here at WIS, we can help with everything from accountancy to mortgages to insurance, pensions, and wealth management. On today's episode of Let's Talk Money and Mortgages, we have Ifti joining us once again. And for those of you who don't know Ifti, Ifti is a trained accountant and mortgage advisor who's been in the industry for over 10 years. Welcome back, Ifti. How are you?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me back, Gemma.
Well, today we're going to be talking all about buy-to-lets, and this, I think, is a little bit of a favourite of yours, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, that's right. We do a lot of buy-to-lets, and I think this is one of the most common questions we have with the buy-to-let, so I think it's a good subject.
Yeah, good. Okay, so I think we should firstly start off talking about why is it difficult to buy a buy-to-let without a residential property?
Okay, yeah. So there are many reasons, but there's one big reason why banks are reluctant to do this. They don't give a mortgage for people wanting a buy-to-let who doesn't have a residential mortgage, right? The biggest reason why it is called backdoor residential. Now, that sounds very technical, but I'll explain what this is. Usually, buy-to-let mortgages are easier to get compared to a residential mortgage because the buy-to-let mortgage should be self-funding, right? So if there's profit that you make out of the buy-to-let property, it pays off the mortgage and the lender is happy and everybody's happy, right? So it is self-funding. And quite often, if you're buying a buy-to-let property, lenders say you need to show income for about £25,000, right? Because, just in case there's no tenant, they want to make sure that there's some money for you to pay the mortgage, right? So that's the whole idea behind that. But what happens is people misuse this. So that's why this has become complicated, because what people did was they bought a buy-to-let because they only need to show 25,000 income, which is sort of achievable for a lot of people, especially if you're sort of living close to London sort of thing, right? So they used to get it. And then what they did was, instead of letting it out, they went and lived in it themselves, right? And just paid interest only, because on a repayment mortgage, you had to pay capital plus interest. Maybe the figures are double compared to interest only, right? So that caused a lot of alarm bells in the circles. So therefore, lenders are very reluctant if you are going to live in a property, buy a buy-to-let and not own another property. So that's the reason why this is a little difficult to do.
Okay. Well, I know what people are going to be wondering. They're going to be wondering, is there a solution for people without a residential property then? And what are the exceptions to this?
Yeah. There are a few exceptions, not too many, but there are some exceptions. So banks are, like I said, they are very reluctant to work in this area, but they have some exceptions, like married couples, right? So for example, let's say husband and wife, the husband owns a property, but the wife wants to get onto the buy-to-let mortgage. But the banks have looked at it because wife is already living with the husband, right, in their house, right? So the banks have made exceptions for the wife to buy the buy-to-let property because, for tax reasons or whatever it is, they prefer the wife to be on the mortgage sort of thing on the buy-to-let, right? So banks have considered those as exceptions because even though she's not part of the original mortgage, she's been sort of living with the husband and with the children and all that in their house, right? So they have looked at those as exceptions. Another one I find was, again, close to family stuff, right? Somebody's living with their parents, right? They have a massive house, child lives with the parents, they're all happy, and the child wants to buy a house. But there's no reason for the child to move out of the house, right? Because child is quite happy where he is, right? And they want to buy a buy-to-let for the child, right? So if they're buying the buy-to-let on the child's name, the banks have been okay with it, right? Not all banks will be okay with it, but there are some banks who have been okay with that as well. So that's an exception I found, right? Another exception I found was where you buy properties in the company's name, right? Again, you might be living with your parents or living with your spouse, but you're buying it in the company's name. Those banks, specialist banks who offer these, have been okay with that, right? But again, it's not all banks who will offer you that. There are specialist lenders who will do this, right? So I have seen that as exceptions as well, right? I've also seen exceptions with expats, right? So expats are UK citizens who live abroad. So with them, we have found some exceptions as well. because they have no intention of coming to the UK in the short run, right? So therefore, the banks have said, okay, you're living in X country, you have a house there, we'll let you buy a house and rent it out in the UK. So they don't necessarily have to be a homeowner here, right, in the UK. So we have seen that as an exception as well. So there are a few instances. I've only picked up about 4 instances where we found exceptions, but there are certain instances in which banks have accepted. Like I said before, not all banks will allow you to do this. It might be just a matter of speaking to some kind of advisor who has a relationship with certain banks and can go and ask these questions from the bank to say, okay, these are the circumstances. Is it kind of acceptable? And often you can find a few banks who will be willing to help you in your circumstances, right? But as a general rule, they don't generally give mortgages for people who don't own a residence.
All right, thank you, Ifti. Do you have any other points that you wanted to put out there for people who might be considering this option?
Yeah. So if somebody is considering this option, like I said, it's always best to speak to an advisor. That's probably the best starting point for you. It can be a very specialist area, and your case can be very unique, right? So in a unique case, you can always have these conversations with banks, right? But quite often, if you're starting, you won't know which bank to ask the question, right? So that's why sometimes advisors can be a little helpful, because they will already know, okay, this bank is likely to be a little flexible, so why don't we ask the question, sort of thing, right? So because obviously there's so many banks out there, where do you start, right? So if there's only a handful who does it, advisors quite often know which ones to talk to, right? So that will probably be your best point of call first.
Yeah, great. Thank you again, Ifti, for some more great advice. I just wanted to put our general points out there again, that these points may or may not be applicable to everybody. So it is really important that you do talk to an advisor to see if they're suitable for you. And if you don't have an advisor, I will leave our WS contact details below, as we are always more than happy to help. A little reminder that as a mortgage is secured against your home or property, it may be repossessed if you do not keep up with the mortgage repayments. Thank you for joining us again today. We'll be back next week with another episode of Let's Talk Money and Mortgages. Have a great day, stay safe, and we'll see you again soon.